Alright, so here we are in front of
The year is 2005. A shaky video, only 18 seconds long, shows a young man standing awkwardly in front of elephants at the San Diego Zoo. He smiles, glances at the camera, and says, "All right, so here we are in front of the elephants." The cool thing is that they have really long trunks, and that's pretty much all there is to say. It is nothing special. No cinematic shots, no sweeping music, no professional editing. And yet, this moment, uploaded by Jawed Karim under the title Me at the Zoo, will become one of the most important artifacts in digital history. From this humble beginning, a revolution would spark. Within just a few years, presidents, musicians, comedians, gamers, and ordinary people from every corner of the globe would flood a single website with billions of videos. It would change how we consume culture, how we share knowledge, how we create fame, and even how we see the truth. This is the story of YouTube. How three young men with an idea reshaped the internet, and with it, the modern world. From the sparks of invention to the battles that shaped the digital age, Tech Tales dives deep into the stories behind the world's most influential technology. These are the breakthroughs, the rivalries, the triumphs, and the spectacular failures that changed history. Told in rich detail, each episode takes you inside the moments where innovation met destiny. And the world was never the same. The internet of the early 2000s was a strange, transitional place. A digital wilderness where old media empires still ruled, but the whispers of a new order were already in the air. For most people, the web was still a novelty. Millions of homes clung to the shrill whine of dial-up modems, their phone lines hijacked each evening so teenagers could message friends on AOL Instant Messenger or explore the chaotic front page of GeoCities. Broadband existed, but it was a luxury. In 2003, only about 20% of American households had high-speed connections. In much of the world, it was far less. The simple act of loading a web page with heavy images could still feel like a test of patience. And yet, culture was already being reshaped. Napster had shown how easily songs could slip free from CDs and spread like wildfire, igniting the music industry's first great panic of the digital age. Blogs had sprung up, challenging newspapers with faster, raw reporting. Search engines, particularly Google, which had quietly become a verb by the early 2000s, were indexing the world's information. Social media, too, was emerging. Friendster had flared brightly and collapsed. MySpace, founded in 2003, was growing rapidly, drawing millions of young users into a new kind of public, digital identity. But when it came to video, the medium that had defined the 20th century through cinema and television, the internet stumbled. Video files were heavy, clumsy, and merciless to slow connections. A 2-minute clip could take half an hour to download. And once you had it, there was no guarantee it would even play. Different operating systems demanded different formats. .avi, .mov, mpg, .wmv. Each file carried its own quirks, often requiring obscure codecs that casual users didn't understand. Windows Media Player might reject a file entirely. Real Player, one of the earliest streaming solutions, became infamous for its crashes, endless updates, and intrusive ads. QuickTime was clunky. Watching video online felt like trying to thread a needle in the dark. Yet the appetite for video was growing. A generation armed with camcorders and the first digital cameras wanted to share their creations. Early camera phones were beginning to trickle into the market, hinting at a future where anyone might record anything at any moment. On forums and message boards, clips circulated like underground currency. A pirated music video here, a TV blooper there, perhaps a grainy copy of a Super Bowl commercial or an amateur comedy sketch. But distributing these videos was a nightmare. People attached massive files to emails, often overwhelming inbox limits. Others uploaded to obscure hosting services like eBaum's World or Newgrounds, where the content was often stolen, watermarked, and buried under layers of ads. The internet's limitations stood in stark contrast to the speed of television. For decades, networks had shaped reality itself by broadcasting images into living rooms, unchallenged in their dominance. But the cracks in the old system were showing. World events were magnifying the need for alternatives. On September 11, 2001, people around the world desperately searched for amateur footage of the attacks, often shared in grainy clips across peer-to-peer networks. In December 2004, the Indian Ocean tsunami was one of the first global disasters where shaky handheld videos circulated online, bypassing news anchors and film crews. These raw, unfiltered images hinted at a new kind of storytelling, one not bound by studios or schedules, but by immediacy and authenticity. Technological breakthroughs were aligning with cultural demand. Broadband adoption was accelerating, and the cost of server storage, once prohibitively high, was falling rapidly. Just as importantly, a quiet piece of software innovation had arrived: Adobe Flash. Originally designed for animations and interactive websites, Flash introduced a way to embed video directly into a web page. Suddenly, a user didn't have to download a file or hunt for codecs. They could just press play. For the first time, streaming video could feel instant, accessible, and universal. But no one had yet built the perfect platform to harness these conditions. Google, still focused on search, had experimented with video indexing, but not sharing. MySpace allowed users to post videos to their profiles, but the process was clumsy, buried within the chaos of glittering backgrounds and auto-playing songs. Peer-to-peer networks like Kazaa or LimeWire traded movies and TV shows in bulk, but they were plagued by viruses and legal troubles. There was no clean, simple, central hub where ordinary people could upload, view, and share videos with the world. At the same time, Silicon Valley itself was shifting. The dot-com bubble had burst in 2000, wiping out fortunes and startups overnight. By the mid-2000s, however, a new generation of entrepreneurs was emerging, leaner and sharper, shaped by the failures of their predecessors. Companies like PayPal had survived the storm, producing a crop of veterans who carried both the scars of the crash and the confidence of survivors. Among them were three names that would soon become inseparable from online video: Chad Hurley, Steve Chun, and Jawed Karim. The moment was ripe. The culture was hungry. The technology was ready. The internet was waiting for its killer application, one that would make video as easy to share as text or images. And from the unlikeliest of sparks, YouTube would rise to fill that void. Great revolutions rarely announce themselves with trumpets. More often, they begin in frustration, with someone muttering, "There has to be a better way." For Chad Hurley, Steve Chun, and Jawed Karim, that frustration was online video. All three had worked at PayPal, part of a remarkable generation of young technologists who came through the company in its early years. The PayPal Mafia, as the group would later be called, included Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, and many others who would go on to reshape Silicon Valley. Hurley was a designer from Pennsylvania with a knack for clean, user-friendly interfaces. Chun, born in Taiwan and raised in Illinois, was a gifted engineer with a restless curiosity. Karim, who had emigrated from East Germany as a child, was analytical, skeptical, and obsessed with how information could be democratized. In 2004, PayPal was acquired by eBay, and many of its employees moved on to new ventures. Hurley, Chun, and Karim remained close, often meeting in coffee shops around Palo Alto, tossing ideas back and forth. Again and again, their conversations circled back to video. It wasn't hard to see the problem. They had tried to share clips with friends and colleagues, only to run into the same headaches everyone else did: massive file sizes, endless errors, mysterious missing codecs, or simply no place reliable to upload. There were websites for dating, for sharing photos, for blogging. But for video, nothing that worked smoothly. One story, perhaps apocryphal, perhaps true, places the spark at a dinner party in early 2005. Chen and Hurley wanted to share video clips they had recorded, but email wouldn't accept the files, and existing sites were useless. "Wouldn't it be great," one of them reportedly said, "if there were a site where anyone could upload videos and anyone else could watch them instantly?" Jawed Karim later emphasized another catalyst: the absence of accessible footage from major events. In February 2004, millions of Americans had watched Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake's infamous Super Bowl halftime performance, ending in the so-called wardrobe malfunction. The incident became one of the most replayed moments in television history. Yet when Karim went online afterward to find the clip, he couldn't. News sites didn't host video. File-sharing networks were inconsistent and filled with malware. To Karim, the gap was glaring. A year later, when the devastating Indian Ocean tsunami struck, amateur videos captured the destruction in terrifying detail. But again, finding them online was a scavenger hunt. The world clearly wanted a centralized, searchable platform for video. With that realization, the trio began sketching out possibilities. They wanted simplicity above all. Users should be able to upload any common video file, and the platform would handle the messy conversion behind the scenes. Playback should be instant, streaming through the then ubiquitous Adobe Flash plugin. Sharing should be as easy as copying a link or embedding the video on another site. In short, YouTube would do for video what Blogger had done for text, and what Flickr was beginning to do for photos. Even the name reflected that mission. YouTube signified the democratization of broadcasting. Anyone could be a creator. Tube, slang for television, connected the new platform to the most powerful medium of the previous century. Together, they promised something radical: your television. The first lines of code were written in early 2005 in a garage in Menlo Park, California. The atmosphere was typical of Silicon Valley startups: messy, caffeinated, fueled by ambition and ramen noodles. Hurley worked on design and branding, creating the now iconic red and white logo. Chun and Karim focused on engineering the upload and playback systems, wrestling with bandwidth constraints and storage issues. They faced immediate challenges. Video files consumed enormous amounts of server space and required expensive hosting. Money was tight. To keep the lights on, Hurley maxed out credit cards, and Chun borrowed equipment from friends and colleagues. At one point, they considered limiting uploads to just a few megabytes to save storage, a decision that, if it had stuck, might have killed the platform before it began. The prototype went live in May 2005. At first, the site was so barren that the founders had to upload dozens of random videos themselves just to make it look alive. They encouraged friends to add home movies, funny clips, or anything they could think of. Slowly, a trickle of content began to appear. Then came the defining moment. April 23, 2005. Jawed Karim, standing in front of elephants at the San Diego Zoo, recorded and uploaded an 18-second clip titled "Me at the Zoo." It was awkward, unpolished, and utterly ordinary, but it was also historic. For the first time, an ordinary user had uploaded a personal video to a public platform where anyone could watch instantly from anywhere. It was the digital equivalent of a first footprint on the moon. Still, the founders weren't yet certain what YouTube would become. Early marketing positioned it as a kind of video-based dating site. "Tune in, hook up," read one tagline. Users were encouraged to upload short introduction clips, like visual dating profiles. But the idea flopped. People weren't interested in recording awkward pitches to strangers. Instead, they used YouTube to share comedy sketches, music videos, pet antics, pranks, and raw clips from daily life. The dating angle was quietly abandoned, and the broader vision, video for everyone about anything, began to crystallize. That summer, word of mouth started to spread. Bloggers discovered they could embed YouTube videos directly into their posts, transforming static pages into living, dynamic ones. MySpace users flooded the site with clips to decorate their profiles, fueling a feedback loop of discovery. A community was forming, one unlike anything the internet had seen before: global, participatory, and endlessly inventive. The spark had ignited, and though the founders couldn't yet know it, they had just lit the fuse of a cultural explosion that would change the world. By late 2005, YouTube was no longer a quirky experiment passed around Silicon Valley circles. It was fast becoming the beating heart of a new internet culture, one defined not by corporations or institutions, but by ordinary people with cameras, creativity, and a connection. The numbers told the story first. Within months of its public launch, traffic was doubling every few weeks. By the summer of 2006, users were uploading more than 65,000 videos every single day, and the site was serving over 100 million daily views. For a company not even 2 years old, this growth was unprecedented. YouTube wasn't just growing, it was erupting, rewriting the rules of what a startup could achieve in such a short time. The success was partly technological. Broadband adoption was finally reaching a tipping point. In America, cable and DSL providers were wiring neighborhoods at record speed, and in Europe and Asia, broadband penetration was surging. For the first time, streaming a video didn't feel like torture. Adobe Flash, ubiquitous in browsers, provided smooth, instant playback without the headaches of codecs and downloads. In the hands of Hurley and Chun, this was transformed into an interface that was shockingly simple: upload, play, share. One button, one link, one click. In a web cluttered with intrusive ads, clunky navigation, and endless registration forms, YouTube felt like a breath of fresh air. But technology was only the stage. What mattered was what appeared on it. The first wave of viral hits revealed what YouTube could do. In December 2005, a user uploaded Lazy Sunday, a Saturday Night Live digital short featuring Andy Samberg and Chris Parnell. NBC had broadcast it once, but on YouTube, the clip spread like wildfire. Millions watched it, far beyond the show's typical audience. For the first time, a sketch from a late-night TV show was reaching global fame through the internet, not television. NBC, initially alarmed, demanded takedowns, but the lesson was clear. YouTube wasn't competing with TV, it was reshaping it. Then came the everyday stars. Gary Bralsma, the Numa Numa guy, lip-syncing to a Romanian pop song with unself-conscious joy. Judson Lapla's Evolution of Dance, a 6-minute comedic mashup of dance styles through the decades, which became one of the site's first mega hits. And of course, Charlie Bit My Finger, a simple home video of two British brothers that charmed tens of millions. These clips weren't polished productions. They had no budgets, no scripts, no studios. Their magic was in their authenticity, raw, unfiltered, and deeply human. Fame itself was being rewritten. In the 20th century, to be famous meant navigating the gates of television networks, record labels, or Hollywood studios. Now, all it took was luck, timing, and an upload button. A teenager with a webcam could achieve the same reach as a late-night host. This democratization of attention was intoxicating, and it drew in millions who might never have dreamed of being performers. Entire communities blossomed. Gamers began posting walkthroughs and highlight reels, inadvertently laying the foundation for Let's Plays and live streaming empires that would dominate a decade later. Aspiring musicians uploaded covers of their favorite songs, and in some cases, original tracks, gaining audiences that record executives couldn't ignore. Teachers and hobbyists shared tutorials, from guitar lessons to cooking recipes to math problems solved on chalkboards. Activists posted protest footage, circumventing the filters of mainstream media. YouTube became more than entertainment. It was education, politics, and social commentary. The sheer variety was staggering. On one page, you might find a piano tutorial. On another, an amateur short film. On another, a shaky recording of a presidential speech. YouTube wasn't just hosting videos, it was hosting the world's collective memory, one clip at a time. But this meteoric rise brought challenges. Behind the clean interface was chaos. Servers strained under the weight of uploads. Bandwidth costs soared into the millions, threatening to bankrupt the young company. At one point, YouTube was spending more than $1 million a month just to keep the site online. Hurley, Chun, and Kareem knew they couldn't survive without serious backing. They turned to Sequoia Capital, one of Silicon Valley's most storied venture firms. Relof Botha, a former PayPal CFO who had known the trio, led the investment. In late 2005, Sequoia injected $3.5 million into the fledgling company, buying YouTube time to breathe. Later rounds would follow, bringing tens of millions more. The gamble was enormous. Video was notoriously expensive to host, and no one had yet proven a profitable model for user-generated content. But Botha and Sequoia sensed what few others did. YouTube had captured lightning in a bottle. Not everyone shared the enthusiasm. Traditional media companies were horrified by the wildfire spread of copyrighted content. Music videos, TV sketches, sports highlights, all appeared on YouTube, often without permission. Viacom, the media giant behind MTV, Comedy Central, and Nickelodeon, fumed as its content racked up millions of views on a site it didn't control. Hollywood studios saw pirated film clips circulating freely. For critics, YouTube was less a revolution than a massive infringement machine. Yet takedowns and lawsuits couldn't stop the momentum. For every clip removed, 10 more were uploaded. The power had shifted. Audiences were no longer waiting for media companies to decide what they could watch and when. They were finding it themselves through links shared on MySpace profiles, blogs, and emails. By mid-2006, YouTube had become the fastest-growing website in history. Comscore, the web analytics firm, reported that YouTube was now surpassing even MySpace in video views, a staggering achievement given that MySpace had tens of millions of users. A cultural tipping point had been reached. Even competitors took notice. Vimeo, launched in 2004, remained small and niche. Google, sensing the shift, had built its own service, Google Video, but it was bloated, poorly designed, and no match for YouTube's simplicity. Users had made their choice. The internet's water cooler was no longer TV. It was YouTube. The rocket was ascending, burning brighter every day. But rockets, by their nature, face two fates. They either stabilize into orbit, or they explode. YouTube's future would depend on whether it could survive the mounting pressures of money, lawsuits, and competition. And looming on the horizon was a player powerful enough to decide its fate. Google itself. By the summer of 2006, YouTube was the hottest property on the internet. Its meteoric rise had captured headlines, and its traffic dwarfed that of older, more established platforms. Yet beneath the euphoria, the cracks were already visible. The very qualities that made YouTube irresistible, its openness, its speed, its lack of gatekeepers, were also the ones threatening to destroy it. The most immediate problem was money. Video is expensive, brutally so. Every minute of footage uploaded meant more servers, more bandwidth, more storage. YouTube's growth, measured in millions of new daily views, was both exhilarating and terrifying. At its peak that year, the company was burning through more than $1 million a month just to keep the lights on. Venture capital could only carry them so far. Without a clear revenue model, YouTube was racing toward a financial cliff. But the bigger threat was legal. By 2006, media companies were sounding the alarm. Television networks, music labels, and film studios saw their copyrighted material circulating freely on the platform. Everything from music videos and movie trailers to entire episodes of TV shows. To them, YouTube was profiting, or at least growing, on the back of stolen content. Lawsuits loomed like storm clouds. Viacom was the loudest critic. The conglomerate behind MTV, Comedy Central, and Paramount Pictures claimed that hundreds of thousands of its clips were being uploaded without permission, some amassing millions of views. Viacom executives accused YouTube of building an empire on piracy, even estimating that up to 80% of the site's traffic came from unauthorized content. Hollywood studios echoed the complaints. Sports leagues worried that game highlights were being clipped and shared instantly, undermining broadcast rights worth billions. The parallels to Napster were inescapable. 6 years earlier, that peer-to-peer file-sharing network had dazzled millions by making music free and instant, until the record industry sued it into oblivion. Napster's rise had been spectacular, but its fall had been swift and merciless. To many observers, YouTube was following the same trajectory, only with video instead of music. The question was not if it would be sued, but when. Inside YouTube's offices, the mood was a mix of triumph and dread. The founders could see the tidal wave of traffic, the daily flood of uploads, the cultural power of their creation. But they also knew they were running out of time. The legal challenges weren't abstract. They were existential. A single massive judgment could bankrupt the company overnight. Even if they survived the lawsuits, the infrastructure costs alone could sink them before revenue ever materialized. Meanwhile, competitors were circling. Vimeo, though niche, was carving out a space for high-quality creative videos. MySpace allowed video uploads, and with its massive user base, it seemed a threat. Most significantly, Google had entered the arena with Google Video in early 2005. On paper, it should have crushed YouTube. Google had infinite resources, global reach, and a trusted brand. But Google Video was lumbering, bureaucratic, and confusing. Uploading required long forms, playback was clunky, and the design lacked the elegance of YouTube's one-click simplicity. Users voted with their attention, and Google Video lost badly. Still, Google was far too powerful to ignore. By autumn 2006, YouTube's founders realized they faced two choices: secure a partner big enough to weather the coming storm, or risk collapse. The conversations with potential buyers began quietly. Yahoo showed interest. Microsoft, always eager to compete with Google, circled as well. But one suitor stood out. Google, fresh off its IPO and flush with billions from its advertising empire, recognized what was at stake. Text search was its crown jewel, but video was the next frontier, and YouTube had already won the race. The negotiations were intense, but swift. For YouTube, the stakes were survival. Without a powerful ally, lawsuits or bankruptcy could wipe them out within a year. For Google, it was dominance. If they hesitated, Yahoo or Microsoft could seize the most important property of the new internet. Sergey Brin and Larry Page, Google's co-founders, personally endorsed the move. Eric Schmidt, then CEO, later admitted that the acquisition was driven less by financials than by fear, the fear of missing out on a cultural shift. On October 9, 2006, the deal was announced. Google would acquire YouTube for $1.65 billion in stock. For a company less than 2 years old, with virtually no revenue, the price was staggering. Critics howled that Google was wasting its money on a fad, a piracy hub destined for lawsuits. But for Hurley, Chun, and Kareem, it was vindication. Their idea, born from frustration in a garage in Menlo Park, had become one of the fastest and most valuable deals in Silicon Valley history. The acquisition changed everything. Google brought not only financial security, but also legal protection. With its vast resources, it could absorb lawsuits, negotiate licensing deals, and fund the infrastructure YouTube desperately needed. Within months, YouTube signed agreements with major music labels like Universal and Sony, allowing official videos to appear legally on the platform. New content ID systems began to emerge, giving copyright holders tools to manage their material. What once seemed like a chaotic Wild West was slowly gaining order. Yet the transition marked a turning point in another sense: the anarchic freedom of YouTube's early days. When anything and everything was uploaded without oversight, began colliding with the realities of corporate stewardship. Rules tightened. Advertisers demanded brand safety. Media companies sought control. YouTube would never again be the scrappy outlaw of 2005. The rocket had found its orbit. The question now was whether it could survive the crushing pressures of life at the top, and whether it could transform from rebellious outsider to global giant without losing its soul. When Google acquired YouTube in October 2006, the skeptics sharpened their knives. It's Napster all over again, some declared, a site built on piracy, doomed to collapse under lawsuits. Even inside the industry, few believe that YouTube could evolve from a wild west of shaky home videos and stolen TV clips into a sustainable business. Yet what happened in the years that followed was nothing less than astonishing. Instead of collapsing, YouTube survived, adapted, and ultimately triumphed, transforming itself into the backbone of modern internet culture. The first great trial came quickly: copyright. Lawsuits had been circling even before the Google deal, and Viacom fired the opening salvo in 2007. The media giant sued YouTube for $1 billion, claiming that the platform knowingly profited from infringing content. It was a test case for the entire user-generated content model. If YouTube lost, it could set a precedent that would kill not just the company, but the very idea of platforms where users upload freely. Google's legal team went on the offensive. They argued that YouTube was protected under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, DMCA, a U.S. law passed in 1998 that shielded platforms as long as they removed infringing material when notified. This safe harbor provision became YouTube's lifeline. Courts eventually sided with YouTube, ruling that it couldn't be held responsible for every upload as long as it responded to takedown requests. The decision didn't just save YouTube. It set the legal foundation for the modern internet, protecting everything from Facebook posts to Twitter memes. But Google knew legal defenses weren't enough. To thrive, YouTube needed to transform from a haven of pirated content into a legitimate ecosystem where creators and rights holders alike could benefit. Enter Content ID. Launched in 2007, this ambitious system scanned every uploaded video against a database of copyrighted material. Rights holders could then choose whether to block, track, or monetize matches. It wasn't perfect, and controversies would rage for years, but it was revolutionary. For the first time, copyright owners could participate in YouTube's economy instead of fighting it. The second great trial was money. YouTube had global traffic, but no clear revenue model. Google's solution was advertising, but advertising at a scale the internet had never seen before. In 2007, YouTube introduced the Partner Program, allowing select creators to share in ad revenue from their videos. For the first time, uploading funny sketches, tutorials, or vlogs could pay real money. What began with a handful of creators soon expanded into a vast network, turning YouTube into the first true creator economy. This shift was seismic. Individuals who once saw YouTube as a hobby suddenly viewed it as a career. Comedians like Smosh, vloggers like Ray William Johnson, and tech reviewers like Marquez Brownlee built empires on the platform. Musicians who had been ignored by record labels found global audiences. Justin Bieber, discovered on YouTube in 2008, became a global superstar. The line between amateur and professional blurred until it vanished. By the early 2010s, YouTuber was no longer a curiosity. It was a profession. Culturally, YouTube was unstoppable. Viral videos weren't just funny distractions. They were shaping global conversations. Susan Boyle's 2009 audition on Britain's Got Talent spread worldwide through YouTube, making her an overnight star. Political campaigns uploaded ads and speeches, reaching younger voters who no longer watch cable news. Protesters in the Arab Spring uploaded raw footage of demonstrations, bypassing state-controlled media. In classrooms, teachers began using YouTube to supplement lessons, while students turned to Khan Academy's tutorials for math and science help. The platform was no longer just entertainment. it was infrastructure. And as YouTube spread internationally, its triumph deepened. Google localized the site into dozens of languages, opening the floodgates for creators in Japan, Brazil, India, and beyond. South Korea's music industry seized on YouTube as a global stage, helping spark the K-pop explosion. Psy's Gangnam Style became the first video to surpass 1 billion views in 2012, a milestone once thought impossible. In Brazil, comedy collectives gained millions of subscribers. In India, Bollywood studios embraced YouTube as both a promotional tool and marketplace. What began as Silicon Valley Garage had become a global cultural network. But triumph never came without turbulence. The community that flourished under YouTube's openness also tested its limits. Controversies erupted over violent or extremist content, conspiracy theories, and hate speech. Advertisers grew wary, leading to the infamous adpocalypse of 2017, when major brands pulled ads after discovering they were running alongside offensive videos. In response, YouTube tightened policies, demonetized millions of creators, and leaned heavily on algorithms to enforce rules. For many small creators, this felt like betrayal, proof that YouTube's golden age of wild freedom was over. Yet those same algorithms also drove YouTube's growth. The recommendation system, quietly refined by Google engineers, became one of the most influential forces in digital culture. It guided users from video to video, creating the modern binge-watching habit. It could elevate unknown creators overnight, sending their content to millions. At the same time, it drew criticism for amplifying sensationalism, outrage, or misinformation. But whether loved or feared, the algorithm ensured that YouTube wasn't just a library of videos. It was an engine of attention. By the mid-2010s, YouTube had over 1 billion users, consuming billions of hours of video each month. It became the second largest search engine in the world, behind only Google itself. Entire new industries, esports, beauty vlogging, reaction videos, unboxing channels, were born and flourished on its soil. Traditional broadcasters, once dismissive, now posted their own clips to the platform. Record labels struck official deals, recognizing that YouTube had become the primary way a new generation consumed music. What had once seemed like a fad was now woven into the fabric of daily life. Parents posted baby videos for relatives abroad. Students learned guitar chords from strangers halfway around the world. Aspiring filmmakers built audiences without Hollywood. Presidents addressed nations through YouTube live streams. The old hierarchies of media had not disappeared, but they had been irrevocably challenged. Looking back, YouTube's triumph was not that it avoided collapse, but that it redefined the very meaning of media. It proved that creation and distribution no longer required studios, licenses, or gatekeepers. All it required was a camera, an internet connection, and the courage to hit upload. From a shaky clip of elephants at the zoo, YouTube had grown into the global stage of the 21st century. Messy, chaotic, controversial, but undeniable. The true legacy of YouTube is not just in the billions of videos it hosts, but in how profoundly it has altered the very fabric of human communication. Few platforms in history have so thoroughly transformed culture, politics, business, and daily life. From a shaky elephant video at the San Diego Zoo to an empire spanning continents, YouTube's imprint is everywhere. First, YouTube redefined who gets to create culture. Before 2005, the pathways to fame were tightly controlled. Television studios, record labels, publishers, and Hollywood gatekeepers decided whose voices were amplified. YouTube smashed those barriers. Suddenly, anyone with a webcam and an idea could find an audience of millions. The term viral video entered the lexicon, and with it, a new kind of celebrity. Pop stars like Justin Bieber, Shawn Mendes, and The Weeknd launched their careers through YouTube exposure. Entire new categories of stars, vloggers, gamers, beauty gurus, educators, emerged, building followings larger than those of traditional entertainers. Second, YouTube reshaped industries. The music industry, once decimated by piracy, found new life in the platform. Record labels now release official videos directly to YouTube, where they garner billions of views and ad dollars. The platform also became the largest stage for political messaging, from campaign ads to presidential addresses. Even television itself had to adapt. Late-night hosts like Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert found their survival not in Nielsen ratings, but in viral YouTube clips shared the next morning. Sports organizations, too, began posting highlights directly to YouTube, acknowledging that fans wanted instant access on their phones, not delayed broadcasts on cable. Third, YouTube transformed education. Khan Academy pioneered free online tutorials that reached millions of students worldwide, while countless creators filled niches in science, history, technology, and the arts. Whether learning to cook, fix a sink, or understand quantum physics, users turned to YouTube as their first teacher. The platform blurred the line between formal education and informal, peer-to-peer learning, democratizing knowledge on an unprecedented scale. Universities, nonprofits, and even NASA began using YouTube as a global classroom. As it expanded internationally, YouTube became a crucible for cultural hybridization. Japanese creators experimented with visual styles that influenced Western vloggers. Latin American comedians gained audiences in Europe. Indian educators found followers in Africa. K-pop spread from Seoul to Sao Paulo and San Francisco through YouTube, with Psy's Gangnam Style in 2012 breaking the 1 billion view barrier, a milestone once thought unimaginable. In doing so, YouTube didn't just spread culture, it blended it, creating global communities bound not by geography, but by shared interest. Yet YouTube's legacy is more complicated than celebration alone. The same algorithms that could elevate a science channel to global fame could also amplify conspiracy theories and misinformation. Critics point to YouTube's role in radicalization pipelines, in spreading anti-vaccine propaganda, or in promoting sensationalism over substance. Its openness, once hailed as a democratic miracle, also became a vulnerability, forcing the platform into constant tension between free expression and responsibility. Economically, YouTube catalyzed the creator economy, now worth tens of billions of dollars annually. Thousands of creators have built full-time careers, while millions more earn supplemental income. Whole companies, from Patreon to TikTok, trace their lineage to YouTube's model. Yet this economy also created new forms of precarity. Creators often live at the mercy of algorithmic shifts, policy changes, and advertiser preferences. The same platform that can grant fame overnight can just as quickly erase livelihoods. The evolution of format also became part of YouTube's legacy. It pioneered short-form virality before TikTok made it fashionable, and later introduced YouTube Shorts to compete directly. Live streaming opened a new frontier for gaming, sports, and concerts. Podcasts found a home on the platform, bridging the gap between video and audio culture. YouTube became less a site than a constantly evolving ecosystem, adapting to every shift in digital behavior. Culturally, YouTube has become the world's stage and archive. It preserves fleeting moments, a child's first steps, a spectacular sports highlight, a once-in-a-lifetime concert, while also serving as a time capsule of trends, fashions, and memes. Future historians will not only read about the early 21st century, they will watch it, frame by frame, through billions of uploads. On a personal level, YouTube has woven itself into the rituals of daily life. It is the background music of workouts, the how-to guide for home repairs, the bedtime story for children, and the classroom for lifelong learners. Its ubiquity is so complete that many younger generations hardly distinguish between watching YouTube and watching television. For them, YouTube is television. And yet, its contradictions are inseparable from its legacy. It is a force for empowerment and exploitation, enlightenment and misinformation, creativity and chaos. It could democratize knowledge while centralizing power in the hands of a few giant channels. It can archive the beauty of humanity and amplify its darkest impulses. Still, it is impossible to deny its place in history. YouTube has done for video what the printing press did for books and what radio did for sound. It took a powerful medium and made it universal. It gave billions of people a voice, a stage, and an audience. The legacy of YouTube is not just that it changed the internet. It changed us, how we learn, how we laugh, how we argue, how we remember, and how we dream. In less than 2 decades, YouTube grew from a shaky zoo video to the largest stage in human history. It reshaped fame, rewrote industries, and redefined how billions of people learn, laugh, and connect. Its story is messy, full of contradictions, a platform that liberated voices yet fueled controversies, that empowered creators while testing the limits of free expression. But perhaps that is the truest reflection of humanity itself. Imperfect, chaotic, endlessly creative. When Jawed Karim stood before those elephants in 2005, he could not have imagined that his awkward 18-second clip would spark a revolution. And yet here we are, living in a world where anyone, anywhere, with nothing more than a phone, can speak to millions. The dream of broadcast yourself has become reality, shaping the very rhythm of modern life. And now, the story continues, because YouTube isn't finished. Its next chapter will be written not by corporations, but by creators, by you. If you enjoyed this journey through the epic birth of YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like, and share, because in the world YouTube built, the next great story might just start with you pressing upload.